about 5 of 7 at the moment, and about 50 degrees. And I'm going to guess, from what little I can see in here, completely overcast. So we'll be popping out of bed and packing up like always, and we'll see you in a bit. So it's about 25 minutes of 9, and we've arrived at our first feature of the day, which is Hidden Cove lean-to. The lean-to is not right on the trail. There's a side trail that comes here. It's not real long. It's a few hundred feet. But you know, the cove isn't the only thing that's hidden. The lean-to itself is hidden because there's no sign indicating that trail comes here, that there's a lean-to down here. You just have to kind of know, I guess. Pay attention. So in thinking some more about the reasons that Rob and Ed may have bypassed Catlin Bay and come here, it occurs to me that Catlin Bay is 1.1 miles from the road crossing, and Rob and Ed were hiking on Memorial Day weekend, and the place is clearly, you know, laid out in expectation that it's going to be very popular. So I'm guessing that when they got to Catlin Bay, they found a crowd that was large enough that they didn't really prefer to stay there, and they came on to here, which is not set up for large crowds. So I'm not going to spend the time to look around for hammock sites. They obviously found at least 2. There are some pretty established tenting areas that I saw as well. And the lean-to is close to the water, not quite as close as we were last night. But, well, there it is. Hidden Cove lean-to. So 2.3 miles further north along Long Lake here, we should find Kelly Point lean-tos number 1 and number 2. So we're back out on the Northville-Placid trail, and I just thought I'd show you where the side trail is to Hidden Cove lean-to. That's the Northville-Placid trail northbound there, coming up a little rise. And this is the trail to the lean-to. I mean, it's easy enough to see that it's a trail, but there's no real landmarks here to point out. And there's the trail southbound. So if you want to stay at Hidden Cove, you just have to kind of keep your eyes open. On we go. It's about 9:45, and we have arrived at Kelly's Point. So one of the shelters is behind me here, and one is over there. No indication of which one is number 1 and which one is number 2. There's about half a picnic table there, and each of these shelters has one of these really massive, I have to get further away so you can see it all, fire things in front of them. All right, there were some other interesting features back up near the trail that I'll show you. But other than that, I don't really have any need to dawdle here. As you're approaching the Kelly's Point lean-to area, the first thing you may see, and this is for northbound hikers, is this old privy here that actually has no door on it. But then there's a newer privy over there, which thankfully does have a door. And then you start sensing an open area off to the left, and there's kind of a trail to the left and kind of a trail to the right, and no blazes to be seen. The Northville-Placid trail goes to the right here. If you want to get to the lean-tos, you go to the left, and I'll show you what's down there. You've seen the lean-tos, but there's some other stuff. So the lake and shelters are just a short distance through those trees there. We're looking south now, and now away from the lake, and there's an old foundation with some trees growing up in it, and a big grassy area, kind of slopey, but you know, up towards the top I guess it's kind of level. It would be nice for tents. I took a quick look around and didn't really find anything that screamed out this is a place for a hammock, but I didn't look that long. So I'd be surprised if you could find nothing. Some of these trees you'd have to bring a 12-footer tree strap to use them, or maybe longer. Anyway, well, we're going to keep headed north. We should find Rodney Point lean-to number 2 in 1.3 miles. At 10:35, we've arrived at Rodney Point lean-to number 2. It is also off the trail, and again the side trail is unmarked. I'll show you that when I get back up there. I don't start by showing you that because I'm not sure when I find the trail that it actually goes anywhere. So, pretty standard Adirondack shelter. This does have a feature I've never seen in a shelter before, but here on the side is a shelf that's held up with a couple of hooks and eyes, and will swing down. It's a fold down shelf. So we do have a fire pit here, of course. I can see what appears to be a privy way over there. There is a nice grassy spot down there towards the lake, which has a camp here tag in it. And I looked around in the general area, and in a minute or two found a couple of decent places that a hammock could be hung, you know, as well as places for tents. Looking up, I see a little bit of blue sky. Would be nice to get some sunshine. Well, I think that's all to be said about this. As I said, I'll show you what the trail looks like where this trail leaves. Okay, back at the trail. But we're actually looking southbound right at the moment. So this isn't an area where there's water that crosses. It's a little bit rocky. At the moment, as of today, there's both pink and blue survey tape on a tree that in this little wash that is at the start of the trail down to the lean-to. And you know, I don't know what else to tell you. Northbound looks like that. Not hard to spot so long as that survey tape is there. Otherwise, you have to be paying pretty close attention. And I was supposed to be just a tenth of a mile further on to, what was this, Rodney Point number 1. Okay, another good visual clue. Just, maybe 100 feet up from that trail junction is sign of some actual trail maintenance, which, not to, you know, disparage anyone, but there's not a lot of places where there's signs of obvious recent trail maintenance on the Northville-Placid Trail. So, again, it's a good visual clue. This is between the two trails to the two Rodneys. Well, it's 10 of 11, and I haven't found the second trail. Which means I don't know really for sure which Rodney that was, although I'm going to guess, since I've been watching very closely, that was actually number 1 and I missed number 2 further to the south. Huh. And I was doing so well. All right, well, we got a ways to go. I'll look it up. Hold on. We've got about 2 miles to go to get to the Plumleys. So I am seeing a bunch of blue sky, and we did have some bit of sunshine. So we're on the right track, but this is the Adirondacks, so we know that can change in a moment. All right, well, here's the thing. There's a trail that's going down towards the water with a couple of no trespassing signs on it, and there's a no trespassing sign over there. I probably can't really see it, but there's a no trespassing sign facing towards the right up here. We've got some fresh blazing of all kinds there, and no Northville-Placid Trail blaze in any direction. Well, we'll backtrack a little, make sure we're on the Northville-Placid Trail, and scratch our head some. Well, we are on the Northville-Placid Trail, so I'm going to try straight ahead. Well, I went for about 5 minutes straight ahead, and I'm going to guess that at the very least that used to be the Northville-Placid Trail, but I saw a couple of stray New York State trail markers, but no Northville-Placid Trail blazes. So I came back, and I'm going to try, well, the sun's up there, but I'm going to try the uphill path for a little bit. Don't know what's going on here. Well, I'm still not real sure what's going on. So I've tried the straight ahead trail for a while, and then I tried I doubled back and tried the uphill path for just a little bit, and that felt all wrong. I think if that was a relocation of the trail, there either would have been blazes or at the very least more surveyors flagging tape, and there was neither, and it obviously was not well traveled. So I've come back to essentially the straight ahead trail, which is well traveled, and every once in a while does have an official state of New York blaze on it, but since then I have seen no actual Northville-Placid Trail blazes. But there are no other trails, at least on the National Geographic map in this area. One thing the National Geographic map does show is that right about where we did that, that we cross into privately held land. I don't know. But the trail's, not hard to follow, and this seems like the most likely correct path, so I'm going to stick with it. How lost could I possibly get? Okay, I'm not lost. So it's been at least 10 and maybe 15 minutes since I was last at that intersection with the no trespassing signs, and finally there's an official Northville-Placid Trail blaze. And there's no other trails coming in or going out, so it was not a relocation. If I had to guess, I'd guess that someone has been ripping the Northville-Placid blazes down. Anyway, we know we're on the right trail, and we'll continue along. Schedule's all confused now, but still we're hoping to see the Plumleys in the next half hour or so. And as I recall, there's some beaver activity that we'll have to negotiate before we get there. And just a few minutes after finding that first Northville-Placid trail blaze, I come across the infamous spring house. As it happens, I don't need any water, so I won't be stopping to partake, but one more indication that I'm on the right trail. Well, here's another place I remember from Rob and Ed's trip. It looks not as wet as when they crossed it, I think, but that's been true all along, hasn't it? There's no real good blazing, and actually blazing has been pretty scarce lately, but I'm pretty sure we need to cross the dam. And crossing the dam was no problem at all, right at the moment anyway. Now when Rob was filming Ed crossing the dam, Ed, back at those trees, found a sign on the ground that said something about Plumley's Landing, and I looked and the sign wasn't there anymore, but here just across when we re-enter the woods, there's a sign. I'm not sure that's going to come out. Yeah, I think it is. Plumley's Landing, 406 yards. Well, that's pretty precise. I'm not going to count my paces. So we're close. It's about 5 afternoon, and we've come to our first signage, really, that I can recall since Route 28 North, or actually the parking lot on whatever that road was, off Route 28 North. Anyway, lean-to down that way. And here we are a few minutes later at one of the Plumleys. And as I said, it's a little afternoon, so it's a good time for me to take a break for a little bit. And, well, I'll reconnoiter some as well. Look, watch what I'm doing. All right, we'll be back in a bit. So there is a second shelter, and I took a walk over there. When the water's low, as it is now, you can follow this trail a little ways north along the shore. And, well, it looks like another basic Adirondack shelter, except for some reason it's built much closer to the ground. According to the trail guide, it's newer and not as used. It doesn't look a lot newer. But there's many more tenting, camping spots at the one that I came to. And here's the lake. Got a pretty good onshore breeze at the moment. And there's some high peaks, or at least higher peaks, down there at the end. And speaking of peak, I don't know, I'd say we're coming right up to peak color. Good timing on our part. And behind our shelter, there's another one of those grove of pines and cedars that goes off a ways. It's nowhere near as extensive as the one at Catlin Bay, but it's pretty big, and there's places in there to both camp and hammock, or tent and hammock. Although, if you're going to hammock back there, be prepared to deal with some large trees. All right, well, I guess we'll move on. Still lots of blue sky. Okay, back out on the trail and looking at our signage again. There's some numbers here that pretty closely correspond to what's in my spreadsheet. So it's a little over 4 to Shattuck Clearing, and that's really not, won't be anything to write home about. and about 5 miles onto the lean-tos at Cold River. And it is currently 12:32. It's 5 minutes of 2, and we are apparently at Shattuck's Clearing, which they really ought to rename to something else because it's just a little grassy spot. Well, there's nothing much to say about it. We got a sign here. So the Cold River lean-tos are 0.7 and 0.8 from here. Duck Hole, where we're going to be tomorrow, is 12 from here, and then Abbeville Road Trailhead is 24 miles from here. 2 days to a cold beer. Oh, about 3 minutes after 2, and we've come to Suspension Bridge number 1. Good thing my wife's not here. She'll like number 2 even less. And about 13 after 2, we come to the second suspension bridge. So it's almost 2:30 and I am at Cold River number 3. And I would have been here quite a bit sooner, but there are 2 guys in Cold River number 4 who yacked my ear off for 15 minutes or so. So if you're going northbound, Cold River number 4 is to your left immediately after you cross the second suspension bridge. Cold River number 3, you continue downstream, 0.2 or 0.3, the signs differ, miles, and you come to, well, the second lean-to, number 4. No, number 3. Anyway, and the view here is something like that, which is not bad. We began our day this morning at Catlin Bay. From there, we began our northward trek along the shore of Long Lake. We found Hidden Cove Lean-to, Kelly Point Lean-tos 1 and 2, one of the 2 Rodney Point Lean-tos, a confusing section of trail, some beaver activity, and then the Plumleys. We crossed an uneventful but pleasant section of trail, and finally reached Shattuck Clearing and Cold River. So looking briefly at the surroundings as I walked in, I'd be very apprehensive about finding a place to hang a hammock, except that I know from watching Rob's video on YouTube that Rob and Ed and Russ, Duct Tape, all slept in hammocks here a year and a half ago, so there must be trees out there someplace. We won't look right away. We'll recover here a little bit. The blue sky seems gone for the moment. Well, that didn't take long. It turns out there's an excellent spot directly behind the shelter for one hammock. So that settles that. The guys up in the other shelter who said they're here fishing, but came up along Long Lake the way I did today. Let's see. That right across the bridge, there's a place that the cell phone reception works. Where are my words? I don't know. So you can get a signal. So we'll keep that in mind. You know, it's early, so there's time for me to wander up there and see if I can get a hold of Kim. I'm not sure if we're having some kind of communications problem. She sent me a message saying there was some kind of issue this morning, but I didn't really understand what she was saying, and I sent her back a message saying, I don't understand what you mean by this, and I haven't gotten any further messages. So, I don't know. Makes you wonder. So, calling her is a possibility. For the short term, though, I'm gonna relax for a bit. I'm not good at relaxing, so it won't take long. So it's about 10 minutes after 4. And we've got most of our camp chores done. We've collected water. We've set up the hammock and tarp. I'll show you that. And I've exchanged messages with my wife. So I sent her an I'm at camp message and turned off the tracking on the Delorme gizmo, and she sent me a message back. So the suspicion that we were having some kind of communications problem, or she was having some technical issues at home, apparently was totally unfounded, and we're fine. So that's good. I don't want to be worried about that. So the reason that's such a particular issue is, we need to rendezvous. She's picking me up. That's kind of how I came. Yeah, I don't remember exactly how this worked out, but I said I was considering doing a section of the Northville-Placid Trail, and I know there's a guy who runs a shuttle service, and I can find out his information on a forum, and so I was figuring I would contact him, and my wife just volunteers that, well, she'd be happy to come pick me up in Lake Placid. And it's like a 4-hour drive, each way. But, well, she gets to get out of the house, and I understand there's opportunities to do shopping in Lake Placid and visit. The last time we were in Lake Placid was 30 years ago, I'm going to say. So, anyway, so I've got 2 more days of hiking, Thursday and Friday. She's going to leave tomorrow morning sometime, not crack of dawn or anything, but and drive to Lake Placid and stay overnight Thursday night, and then Friday she'll have the morning and early afternoon again to do whatever tickles her fancy. And then I've told her tentatively that I'd be at the end of the trail in Lake Placid, Amoryville, I think it is, road, somewhere between 2 and 3. So that's all well and good. And in the old days, we would just make this kind of arrangement a week in advance, and it always worked out. But it's nice to be able to have communications. It's the 20th. It's the 21st century. So anyway, the communications seem to be working. So one less thing to worry about. So, as I promised, the hammock and tarp setup. So there's the back side of the shelter, right there. So obviously that's blocking the view, but you can't have everything. There is no place to set up the hammock with the view. So here's the hammock and tarp setup with porch mode facing the shelter, because that's the direction I'll be coming back and forth from. And I could have picked, there's a couple different choices in trees here. If I tentatively was going to use that tree, but that would have put me closer to all of these rocks. So I went ahead and moved away a little and picked a pair of trees that are about as far apart as I could go. I've got let's see. Well, I've got another 6 feet of what's that? Tarp. Continuous ridgeline for the tarp. But I've only got about 2 feet, a little more, of whoopee sling on this end. Well, it doesn't really, I mean, I could have put the Dutch buckles further from the tree, you know, so I could be further apart, but this is about the furthest I've ever done, I think. But I think it works out very well. And other than this, you know, when again, Rob and Ed and Russ were here, they, at least, you know, Rob filmed Russ's setup somewhere out in that thicket. So it can be done, but you probably have to search for a while to find something. Interestingly, there's a sign there. This is a toilet down here someplace. Okay, so there's that. And the other news is, while I've been out here yakking at you, it started to rain a little bit, just sprinkle. My wife warned me that this might happen, but still the forecast for tomorrow is sunny. So rain overnight is not a big deal, especially if I've got a shelter to help deal with the situation. But I don't want to get all wet, so I'm going back to the shelter. Well, before it starts to rain even harder, if it is, I figured you wouldn't mind another view of the cold river. It's now completely overcast, but it's still very pretty. So, for the last few days, my problem with what I term cold finger syndrome, you know, has been in abeyance. It hasn't really been a problem, and it's not because the temperatures have been so warm that it wouldn't crop up. It just hasn't happened. But I got here, and you know, granted it was cloudy and probably it's high humidity, and that probably has a factor. But within minutes, my fingers started to go numb. And I basically, after doing a few chores, I mean, they weren't really bad, but they were definitely, you know, numbish. I got out of my hiking clothes and put on pretty much all my warm clothes. So I'm wearing 4 layers here on top, 2 on the bottom. And I was wearing a funny hat until a little while ago, and mitts and gloves, and I had a cup of cocoa, and all that, you know, all together seemed to do the trick, and now my fingers feel fine. The temperature, by the way, is about 58. You know, it's ridiculous. So, you know, if there's any medical people out there, and well, have any advice? Yeah, move to Florida. I know. All right, but at least so far it's been manageable. We'll probably go on since we have time, and I'll have a cup of tea too. You know, the more warm fluids, the better. Other than I'll have to pee a lot, it won't be an issue. Other than that, I'm having a fine time. Well, even with that, I'm having a fine time. It's nice out here. It's about 10 after 5, and we've got a pretty steady, light rain going on. And it's finally rained enough that we have water dripping off the edge of the roof, if that comes out. And now we're looking on a rainy scene. There's something about sitting in a place where it's not raining, you know, where you're protected, and looking out on the rain. It's just... So once again, it's time for dinner, and tonight we're going to have an old favorite, Babelfish 5's Chili Mac. And that's what it looks like, all dehydrated. So we'll put that in the pot and cover it with some water and bring that to a boil. It's the standard process. And then we'll be back. Okay, the chili mac came to a boil, and we gave that a stir. Sorry, it's kind of dim in here. Whoops, and now I've steamed up the lens as well. So anyway, we'll put that in the cozy, and we'll let that sit for, well, at least 20 minutes, and we'll let it go half an hour if it seems to need it. So it's about 6:30, which is also about sunset, and we had dinner. 20 minutes was long enough, soaking the or rehydrating the chili mac. The pasta rehydrates quickly, and ground beef rehydrates surprisingly quickly too. So everything packed up again, and now it's just reading for a while. Try to read until at least 10 o'clock. Otherwise, I'll wake up at like 5 o'clock. That's no good. All right, 2 more days. Tomorrow to Duck Hole, and the day after that to Lake Placid and a cold beer. Good night.